everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Varen and I am here today with the update of my bullet journal, but it's a bit different. So usually once a month I come in at the end of the month to show you how my journal is looking for the new month, but this isn't a March update because funny story, I sat down yesterday to do my predictions and such, and I ended up kind of throwing away everything I was doing and plunging myself into chaos, as I am one to do. But first, let's start at the beginning. Let's start with February. February, I can share the video where I did the setup. It's linked up above in the cards. February's setup was super simple. And yet, as time has gone on, it's just been, things just haven't been working the way I used to do them. I don't even really know when it started happening exactly, but somewhere along the way, more recently, it's like nothing that I used to do was working anymore. And then I started to shift how I was trying to do things. So this month I've learned a lot about myself, and it even started, I think, last month. I've learned more about the profile of autism I have. I'm a self-diagnosed autistic person. I'm going to get a pro diagnosis, and I promise this is relevant. It's just a matter of time and accessibility. Mostly accessibility, because it costs like $5,000. Basically, what it boils down to is very recently, I've been very rapidly learning and understanding the way my brain works. And when I tell you that that has been a huge relief and has also changed everything, I'm not even close to exaggerating. I've always known my brain functions differently. I've always known there was something about me that was off or weird or different, that meant that whenever I talked to people about trying to do things, I could never quite seem to do it their way. And so now I finally figured it out and I understand. And it was one of those moments where it kind of clicked everything into place. And when this happened, I very quickly realized that the way I've been trying to live has not been working. And of course, my journal is extremely reflective of how I've been trying to live. And I've paused here because this is where I started to do this a bit more. I had seen one of Jessica and the Moon's videos where she was talking about her ritual planner, and I really wanted to, I really liked suddenly the weekly layout of daily readings, and so I wanted to give those a try. And so that's this one here. And truly, it's like magic. I can't quite pinpoint to it, but everything is working differently and better than it used to. So this was the first week that I did weekly readings or daily readings. So I have the top box with my week ahead and then each day of the week. For this week, I was using the Songs of the Grandmothers. So I pulled a card. I'd pull a card and as the energy, and then I'd use the bolded keywords as my follow-up questions with the tarot deck. So I did that for this week, and that was really, really great. And at the same time, I started to realize here it was in that week that I started to realize and to learn about the thing about my brain. I really don't want to talk a lot about that. If you are curious and you would like to hear me talk about my experience of learning about my brain, my autism, PDA profile, if you would like to hear about that, let me know in the comments down below. I don't want to begrudge the point here. I'd be happy to talk about it if there are folks here that would find that interesting. And then I did do this as a whole thing, a video that I worked very hard on here. It's linked up above in the cards. It's my personal healing affirmation. But I think it was right around this point here, at the end of this first week. Was it the first full week? Let's see. Here's the week where it shifted. And then, yeah, here's the next. This was the first full week of February. And it was at this point that I started realizing I really needed to change the way I do things. Like the very fabric of how I'm trying to move through life. And this is very much based on the PDA autism, and without any of the details of why, I realized that I need to reframe. Well, it's fine. Without going too deep into the details, the way my brain works is when my brain perceives anything as a demand, my brain gets overwhelmed and it sends my nervous system into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode. Anything that is perceived as a demand, which explains everything. And like, there's so many different examples and ways I could explain it. But it was like, okay, that's why for years and years and years, I've been journaling for a long time. I've been trying to do tasks, and it's like, here's the things I have to do that day. And as soon as I think I have to do them, I just push them forward. And I just don't do them. It's like once I know I have to do them, all my will to do them just drains away. And so it was like, oh my God, there's actually a reason. And all it takes is some simple reframing of my life and building some self-trust. And I can start to lead the productive life I want to lead. But I needed to release the pressure I had on myself of like, you have to do these things. Here's my moon return reading. And speaking of self-trust, I did pull Grandmother Primrose. Self-trust. Give yourself credit, one choice at a time. Repeat, learn to trust yourself. And that was really where it was like, okay, I have to learn to trust that the things that I know need to get done, that I will eventually want them to get done. Like, for example, there's a huge pile of laundry beside me. It's all clean. It just needs to be put away. It bothers me, but at the same time, if I sit there and think I have to do the laundry, it'll take me way longer before I'll be able to do the laundry. Whereas if I just say, like, I will want to do the laundry eventually, it makes it easier on my brain. And doing things in this different way takes me out of fight or flight mode. And of course, being out of fight or flight mode is really where this makes a difference. Actually, so I guess this was the first week where I tried it. Where this was the week where I shifted, where before, what I was doing was in the evening, I was planning out my list of things I was going to do that day. And then in the morning, I was just setting about work. I changed that so that way in the evenings, I'm just kind of taking a look at the appointments and stuff I have, the non-negotiables that I have that day. And then in the morning, I do my daily reading. And based on how I'm feeling in my body and based on that reading, I decide what things I want to tackle. So I'm still, and I did that this week, and it was a transformative experience. Like, I couldn't believe how much better I felt very quickly. I couldn't believe how much more things I got done without trying to. And then, so then this was the second week. This was last week's, which just ended, where I was using the Cosmo beings. And then, so when it came time to use the Cosmo beings, I decided to try doing like a weekly, because these dailies, it was like, okay, this is great, but there's all this extra. So I tried a weekly spread. It worked well enough, I suppose, but I still didn't really like it very much. So then I got to the point, because this was just like last week. So I'm sitting here, all of being aware of all of these changings, and knowing that, having discovered what I have, having learned about myself in this way, where it's a thing that is extremely deep, and it is extremely true, and it's just the way my brain works. Having learned that, I knew very quickly that I was gonna have to change everything. I didn't realize that that would mean the very way in which I plan and such in my journal. I should have. I knew, like, sort of, some, but not quite. And I mean, I've talked about wanting to change how I do things in life anyways. Wanting to rebuild my life in a way that is like building my life for me, as opposed to building myself for life. So that way I can be healthier and more present and all of these other things. I did decide to pull another Circle of Self-Care spread. I just kind of felt like I needed the realignment of it. So I did do that. I really like this layout, where I have the thingamadoodles, the affirmations. And then my self-worth path reading. This is work I'm doing as a badass unicorn on Lisa's channel membership. And then here we are. So yesterday, literally yesterday from the time I'm filming this, so 2 days ago on Sunday, you're seeing this on Tuesday. So on Sunday, I sat down to do my March predictions the way I've always done them. And I did them, and I did get a very clear understanding of the type of work I was going to be doing. A very clear understanding of like what's kind of going on. And then I don't even quite know what happened in my brain now. I can't quite remember to put to words, but I was thinking to myself, like, how do I set up March? What do I want to do? Because if you look, in January, I set up this and this, which I didn't use. I set up this, which I used, but only sort of. This, which I didn't really, like, I used-ish, but January was a hectic month. I set up my calendar, which I did use. And then I set up all of these. And again, I didn't use them. I pre-set up this Self-Worth Path book club page. Didn't do anything here. And then when it came time to set up February, I minimized it even more. And it's because my understanding of the work I do has sharpened. My understanding of my natural tendencies, what I naturally lean into, has sharpened as well. And I always recommend to my clients that you build your life through your natural tendencies. So the laundry, for example, like when we do our laundry and we do a whole big catch up on all the laundry, The natural tendency is that all the laundry gets piled into a big pile and then it sits there, because then that big pile is super huge and overwhelming, and I don't put it away because it's overwhelming. So my brain freaks out, so I don't do the thing. So and what I've done is continue trying to do it that way, even though it doesn't work. And so instead, it's like, okay, when we need to do laundry, I really need to just do one load a day. And then as soon as it comes out of the dryer, try and put it away, because then it's less overwhelming. It's less of a thing, right? But it's that idea of like leaning into the way things already work for you. Leaning into the thing you're naturally doing. And this month, it sounds so silly. I'm a professional astrologer, if you're new here and you didn't know that, most of you probably did. This month, I've been really reckoning with the fact that for me, astrology is the centerpiece. I've talked about, I don't know if I've done it in a video here, but I've talked about, and I did set up my weekly, yada, yada. I talked about, I've talked about on this channel, I believe, or with friends at least, feeling like when it comes to figuring out what to do with myself in life, what to do with my work in life, etc., feeling like I'm missing the centerpiece. Like I have all these pieces of the puzzle, but I'm missing that core piece in the center that it all connects to. And I've just this past week admitted to myself that that centerpiece is already there. It's astrology. And I was just kind of like, I was always using astrology, not recognizing it as the centerpiece didn't change anything about how I was using astrology. It's more so that because I was in denial about it being a center around which I tend to build my life, I was fighting against trying to build my life that way. And therefore I was dampening myself. So this past week, it was like, no, actually, astrology is the center. I literally, without meaning to, build my life astrologically anyways. So why am I not following my own advice I give to clients and just leaning in? So I did my March predictions, and I couldn't think of anything I wanted for March. And then the problem I was having was, I was like, okay, I understand how I work with the sun. I understand how I work with the moon, and I understand how I work with my moon cycles. I understand what I do with those things. And I was trying to get them to fit with the idea of living by the Gregorian calendar, the January, February, March, blah, blah, blah. And it just wasn't quite working. And at the same time, I've seen other people start to do this anyways. I've seen years ago, I've been bullet journaling for years, since 2016. I saw someone, Word Witch, I don't know if they still post, their channel's linked up above, was the first person I saw who did spreads based on, like, from the new moon. Like, that's when they would do their setup in their journal for their planning too, not just for, like, spiritual work. So admitting to myself that astrology is the corner piece, and understanding that, like, I need to rework the way I move through life and the way I try and do things, because when I don't, I just am continually getting burned out. Everything I'd been doing the very fabric of how I plan was blown to pieces and no longer worked. So I had my weekly set up for my daily readings, which this is working very well. I really love this. And then for my dailies, I'm trying this right now. So I have a section for tasks and projects, and then I had decided to do this anyways. So I have a place at the top, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And this page I folded so that way I can always see the tasks and projects with my dailies. So it's a faux Dutch door. So I put the spicy sky weather, and then I decided when it came to March, I really didn't like how the gratitude and victory logs weren't taking up the page. So I decided to try putting my gratitude victory note for Zariah and Cameron here on my dailies. And then I have my tasks. So I had already decided that I wasn't going to do 4 of my main logs for March. And then I was like, fuck. And then I just realized, and I was talking to Zariah, that I was feeling frustrated because the astrology was taking the back burner. And I wanted it more front and center. So I did this instead. I decided to just say fuck it and try planning according to the sun cycle. Now, and for me, yes, it's according to the sun cycle. If you're interested, it's according to the sun cycle because, I mean, it just kind of makes sense for me personally based on things in my chart, but also at the same time, I work with the sun specifically with goal planning and stuff. And if you want to hear more about that, I'm going to be doing a video, I think later this week, about talking about the ways I work with the sun, the ways I work with the moon, the ways I work with my moon cycle. Not like menstrual moon cycle, but like Libra moon return cycle, from one Libra moon return to the other. That's what I mean. Talking about how those, like the practical side, what they end up in, how they feed into my everyday life kind of a thing. I also am planning to do a video soon about like why I love astrology and how you can use it. So stay tuned for all of those. And if you have any other astrology topics you want me to maybe cover, let me know in the comments down below. So I decided to just lean in and go with Pisces season. Now my predictions for Pisces, and this is a blank page. So next, when it comes time for Aries season, I have to stop saying next month. That's going to be hard. My plan is to do, here's the predictions, to do the predictions here. So this page would then say Pisces predictions and would have all that. Then the title page, and then we open into the touchstones, the information. Because I did have all my spreads set up based around the calendar, based around all the practical stuff. But I don't want, life to me is not about practicality. And so I don't want this cornerstone of my life built around that. here I went with a drawing of like, Pisces is a water sign. It is a mutable water. It's the season that takes us from winter into spring in the northern hemisphere. It's extremely wet. And normally I feel kind of overwhelmed and waterlogged in Pisces season, but this Pisces season, the energy feels different. It feels very much like if I am the earth, I am dried and cracked soil that is desperate for water. And so I wanted to do a depiction of the water of Pisces falling down. Yeah, it's a bit overwhelming, but it's needed, and it's soaking into the earth and down into the soil and getting to the roots, which are trying to push up new seeds. So I wanted that kind of feeling of the Pisces water very much feeding this new growth that is here, and it is coming, and it is struggling to push through. And then what's funny, well, we'll come back to what's funny. So there's my Pisces title page. Like, I literally sat down to do my March predictions yesterday when, at the time of filming this on Sunday, I sat down to do my March predictions, and then very quickly ended up being like, no, I want to have my setups based on the sun and where it is, based on the seasons. Pisces season, and Pisces season started on the 19th, so I needed to set up right away. So this is a bit rough and like haphazard. But so there's my title page, and here's my first kind of like touchstone hub kind of thing. I wrote Spirit and Study. That's Pisces in my chart is my 9th house, and the 9th house is Spirit and Study, so I wrote that. And then I did make a little note here. Both my wife and our son have the same rising sign, so I made a note of what house it is for them in their charts, because I feel like observing that, and I did some questions here for it. I feel like observing that will help me get a better feel of the rhythms of our house, and will help me keep in tune with, how to better build and support our family life. So we'll talk about that more in a second. What I did when I was doing the predictions was I ended up reading the guidebook. The guidebook from the Starseeker Tarot, which I use, is fabulous. And I do offer year ahead spread sessions. They don't have to be astrology based. They can be by the month, and you don't have to wait until the end of the year or your birthday. You can start at any time. Some people have started at birthdays. Some people might start with like the spring, whatever time works for you. Technically, Aries season is like an astrological new year kind of thing. So that's coming up. You could start in time. But you can check that out at my website. And that's where we pull a year ahead spread like traditional tarot. And then based on your astrology each time, for most people it's each month, based on your astrology for that month, which is still guided by like the sign, we do predictions on like what your month is going to be like, what work is important, messages coming through. Anyways, the guidebook for the Starseeker Tarot. My website is linked down below. The guidebook for the Starseeker Tarot is freaking gold. So I wrote down here a salient point from each card. And then from those salient points, I came up with 4 questions that I want to ask myself at the end of every day. Did I rest and recenter as needed? So that's the first question. And then I just wrote the days going from the 18th of February to the 20th of March. That is Pisces season. Did I live a life of my choosing? Did I leave room for productivity and play? Was I mindful of the vision I'm manifesting? So those questions are very much based on the cards I pulled for Pisces season for myself. And so those are like my touchstone questions. And then I just did some kind of journaling about how I was feeling about Pisces season. And here it's very clear to me that this Pisces season, things are going about, and my God, the Pisces new moon is like, oof, the message is just becoming extremely clear. And it is about restructuring around my center. And like I said, that's my astrology center. So I wrote that big. And then here I wrote, based on this restructuring around my center, I wrote some things I want to do. I wrote some goals. So that's those. I might like this to one day be a bit more fleshed out, a bit fancier. I don't know. It always starts out kind of organic and messy when you're doing newer things. Then here I have the two questions. Well, it's really the same question, but twice, that associate with my wife and our son. For them both, Pisces season is about their 7th house, and their 7th house is one-on-one relationships. And I have a one-on-one relationship with both of them. So I have the question here, did I work to show up in my relationship with Z and then with Cam? And the point of these touchstone questions here is for me to check in with myself about how I felt. Did I feel like I showed up? Did I feel like I put in the effort to show up in my relationship with them? And then also at the end of the night, to ask them how they felt. During that day, did they feel like I tried to show up? And then balance the two and get an answer. And the system that's developed is an X is no. A check is yes. A slash is kind of like yes and no. It's halfway. Then I wrote here about, there's this really interesting astrology thing happening for me with approaching my Jupiter Time Lord year, which begins on my birthday, March 30th. So I just did some journaling, and this, my astrology, it's very much pointing me towards a thing. It's so fascinating, and it's hard to put into simple terms without just rambling. So if you want to hear more about that, you can let me know. But Pisces season this year is really directly connecting to and feeding towards this astrology that I'm very rapidly approaching. So I wrote about the Jupiter Time Lord horizon, and I journaled about that. And then the only other thing, so, and then at the bottom here, I have the family connections. And so this is where it comes back to, here's how February looked. My calendar, which I was using all the time, gone. The family adventures, sort of gone. Month in tarot, gone because I really wasn't using it. Gratitude, victory. So like, where did all this go? So the gratitude, these four at the back, the gratitude, victories, Zariah and Cameron, they're all here in the daily log. That's what I'm trying. And I determined that I could use the daily log to note medications and stuff as well, because that's the only thing I was doing in the calendar. I was using the calendar to note medications I took so I could keep track and make sure I wasn't taking too much medication. And also I wrote my cycle day. So I was like, okay, well, first, I already have a cycle tracker. It is here. So I can literally just start writing the number of the cycle day in that box at the end of the day and have my cycle tracker all in one little spot. So that took care of that. And then I decided I'm going to try for now. We'll see what I end up liking to do. But I'm going to try now. If I need to take medicine, I'm just going to write it on my daily log. What I really love about this daily log setup, at least in theory, I can have my sky weather. I can have the important stuff, which is a gratitude, a victory, a Zariah moment, a Cameron moment. I can have my tasks. And then at the end of the day, I can still have a space to write about my day. Because try as I might, if it's not in this journal, I forget to do it. And then I can fold this so that way I can always see my tasks and projects. This is like perfect. So that's where the gratitude and victories and the medicine stuff would go. And then here, this is what the family adventures would be. We've been having some trouble with the family adventures stuff. It has been a rough start to the year. And because the year ended and started so rough, we never fully got our house recovered from the holidays. We're still working on that. So the energy reserves we have has been low. So I was like, you know what I think might work a bit better? Maybe we'll come back to this. I don't know. But I think what might work a bit better for my brain to help me remember this stuff, because I'm kind of the leader in my household. I'm the one who kind of takes charge and makes sure things get done. But I'm trying to do that collaboratively instead of just telling everyone what to do. So what I thought was I definitely want to work on family connections, but the pressure needs to be relieved. But even so, there's 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's space for one thing for each day, like there was on the big thing. It just doesn't need to take up as much space. So, I wrote family connections. I split it into 3s, one for me, one for Cameron, one for Zariah, because we always pick. And when I sit down with them to talk about these things, I'm going to try and guide it a bit. I'm going to see if we can frame it around our astrology. So with all this spirit and study stuff in mind, with all this Pisces season stuff and how that's impacting me in mind, what are the things I want to do to connect with my family? For example, an incense house cleanse. That'd be a really good thing to do. And in fact, it's something Cameron loves to do. And then for Cameron and Zariah, I'm going to ask them, what kinds of things would you like to do as a family that you feel right now would really help you feel like your one-on-one relationships are well taken care of, or what have you. I want to use the astrology as the framing, because I really love what happens when I live a life more guided by astrology. And then the other thing is that I'm doing this with all the things. So the other thing I did was I did my new moon in Pisces reading. So get this. This is fucking, what are the chances? This is so irritating. I did this where it was all about water, feeding and going into the earth rather than flooding the earth, finally being absorbed and going in. And then I pulled my new moon shadow card. What is the shadow cast upon my 9th house? And I pulled grief. I want to talk about this more in maybe my next video. This is huge, and my God, it was such an easy reading. It wasn't easy topics, but man, the messages came fast and loud and clear. So I also want to do a touchstone hub like I did here. This is my touchstone for this sun season. And then I want to have a touchstone hub for my shadow work of the Pisces new moon season. And then I am probably going to do some sort of a touchstone hub with my moon return season. It's hard to put all the words to, but I'm very excited and extremely overwhelmed because I woke up this morning and reality hit, and it's like, oh, right. I've actually, like, it was like I was looking at the tower and I could feel it. I could see that it was falling. I could see that things were falling apart, that things just were not working. And that's very much, this message is very much talking about that. This message from grief is very much talking about how, like, since 2016, which is just shortly specifically just shortly after I began bullet journaling, I've built my entire life around and in response to grief, which I needed to do because that is what I needed to survive. Now that I'm out of my grief, I'm on the other side of it, and that feels very weird to say. The structure, the foundation I built for me through my grief is not a foundation that is going to support, that is meant to support growing my life now. A grief foundation it's survival mode. It's how can I hold myself and keep myself safe and keep myself going? It's not, how can I build my life in a way that will support my growth and evolution and will support me? It's not the same thing. And I'm having trouble putting all the words to it, but this very much further validated this message that, like, the bullet journaling wise, I built this, when I started creating my bullet journal, hold on. Here it is. My very first bullet journal. When I started building my bullet journal in July 2016, I was an extremely different person. It was before the worst 2 years of trauma, the end of 2016 until, like, there was a lot of hard years, and it was before a lot of that. It's been, like, this was 5 years we'd been together. My wife and I have been together 11 years now. This year it'll be 12. When I started this journal, I was trying to lead an entirely different life. I hadn't really found the witchy YouTube world yet. I hadn't found the witchy YouTube world yet. My name was different. My wife was presenting as my husband. There's endless ways in which life was different. I was trying to lead an extremely different life. I was smoking just before this. I actually bought this as my victory for quitting smoking. And the entirety of the system that I've been using has been built from this starting point, from this idea of you build your life to be a productive member of society. So that way you can do lots of things, you can grind it out, you can be super productive, you can work. And I no longer want to build a life that's about being super productive and making it so I'm like the best worker bee in the world. That's not healthy. No, thank you. I actively recommend that you don't do that. But, you know, not everyone would agree with me. My whole system got built off of this. And over time, my system got witchier and witchier and way more pagany and way more astrology based and way more lots of things. I had an entirely different vision of what I wanted my life to look like when I was starting this journey. We wanted lots of babies and we were going to get them. And I hadn't learned or studied psychology. There's so many things that I hadn't come to yet. And then November hit. I don't think it was actually in this journal. But then November hit and the pummeling of trauma started. So before I'd even solidly found my footing with bullet journaling, before I'd even I had my footing, but it's a growing and evolving thing. It's like moving into a place. It takes a while to understand how to organize your life in this home that you live in the way that works best for you. So before I'd even had the time for that to fully kind of settle more, I hit the trauma. And the trauma went from November 2016 until like October 2019. And then y'all know what happened in 2020. So other than this first July, August, September, October, 4 months, the entirety of my journaling journey, I built from the headspace of trying to fucking survive. And over time, as I've healed and gotten better, I've moved more away from that grief, from that trying to survive. That's happened. I've gotten further away from it. And the only kind of part of that remaining structure that was left was the idea of specifically building my journal around the calendar months. Am I still going to work with the calendar? Well, yeah, of course. I need my calendar for appointments. I'm still going to do weeklies, which will help me know like what day it is. But I've passed the point where building my life around a calendar is not conducive to who I want to be and how I want to move in this world and to joy. So I have to let go of that last bit of skin that I've shed as a snake, but was kind of still holding on to. And for me, that last skin, that last bit is the things that tie me to the illusion that I wore and that I kept for myself, the illusion that I am a normal human being living a normal life, the illusion that I will just work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, the illusion that I fit in any kind of way in this capitalist world. I'm done trying to bend myself to fit into that. I will do what I have to and work so that way I can be okay. But I have to believe that there's other ways to do it. And I can't keep doing the things in the ways that are actively causing me harm. And I need to start doing things more in the ways that are actively helping. And astrology actively helps me. So I'm leaning into that and getting rid of my Gregorian calendar, at least as the cornerstone of the work I do in my journal, which is so much more than just productivity. So that's the update for Pisces season in my journal. And that means in March, it won't be the update for April. It'll be the update for Aries season. So there's going to be some changes and some shifts, but I think it'll work out. Anyways, that was an extremely long rambly thing. I hope you found it interesting. Long goodbyes, blah, blah. Please like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. You can check out the join in the description box. There's lots of information of ways you can support me and get more work with me and from me, etc., etc. Please keep an eye out on those. And specifically, if you like my astrology stuff and like lots of videos and lives, it's hard for you to manage, check out my Patreon. There's lots of written resource kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm going to let you go, and I will see you again very soon. Lots of love. Bye.